Welcome back everyone to Jeff the IT Guy. Today we're going to be taking a look at our Black Friday PC that we built. We were running Linux on it, and so we looked at it and seen how the performance was. Now I've put Windows on it, put a new SSD in it, one with Windows and one with Linux. But we're using the Windows one, and we're going to look at the performance of the system and see how well it does for a Black Friday gaming build, even though, yes, I know it is well past Black Friday. However, we'll go ahead and take a look at the performance and see how it does. And at the end, we're going to talk about some things that I noticed whenever I was doing my testing. And so I did several tests. Did 9 games. Also tested with the Wraith Prism RGB cooler that comes with a 3900X. And we also did a little bit of overclocking and tinkering in the BIOS with our 3400G. And so we're going to take a look at some of these test results, and we're going to come back and I'm going to talk about some of the things that I saw while I was doing this testing. All right, so here we're going to take a look at some of the graphs and charts that I have made, and we'll just go over them. So I ran a battery of 9 games on the system, and these were games that I thought would do the best with the APU, and I think I threw a wild card in just to see how it does. So this is WoW Retail. This is a game that I like to do a test of because it has so many players, and there's a lot of people who want to play this and who do play this, and this may be a system for them. So using the graphics setting 4, we were able to get a high of 100, low of 81, average of 90. So it wasn't that bad. All right, let's go to the next one, which was WoW Classic. This is also very popular right now. This was on graphics settings 10. And as you can see, the high was 62, low was 51, average was 57. Of course, you can go in there and lower those settings just a little bit, and you're going to stay above 60 the whole time. Diablo 3, still pretty popular. I think it's in like season 13 or 14 or something now. Playing this, whenever you get a lot of mobs around you, you are going to see quite a few dips in your frames, especially when you're firing off a lot of spells, and there's a lot of spells being fired off. But it still stayed above 50 the whole time. Destiny 2, this is on low. I just wanted to test this and see. To be honest, I thought it would do a little bit better, but it's okay that it didn't. You can see that, you're gonna need a dedicated GPU. And this was at 1080p. You could drop to 720p and those frames would go up. League of Legends, this is on very high. Wasn't bad whenever you were in a team fight or something. They dropped to 50, but you can tinker around with the settings and definitely get a very high playable rate, even up above 100 if you wanted to sacrifice on some of the fidelity. Halo Reach on Enhanced, and so in Halo Reach you have 2 options. You have Original and you have Enhanced. Enhanced is a little bit better than Original. It's not the most demanding thing in the world, but that being said, though, it is very playable. Sometimes it dipped down to 45, so you could do you can't really do any tinkering with the settings, but you could do some overclocking, and we'll talk about that after we get through looking at the charts. Doom, I played on the low and on the Vulkan API. Highest I ever seen was 60, low was 45, and the average was 49, so it typically hung around 49, 50 FPS. Skyrim, I threw this one in just because I wanted to know. I was checking just to see how it would do with the game. This wasn't the enhanced edition or whatever they call it. This is just regular old Skyrim. And it didn't do too bad. And then I threw The Witcher 3 in. I knew it wasn't going to play The Witcher 3, but I was like, you know what? Witcher 3 can play on a Nintendo Switch, so maybe it can play on a 3400G. I was wrong. So low at 720p, you got anywhere from 30 to 40. Now, is that playable? Yes. Is it the best experience? No. You're going to want a dedicated GPU For this, however, though, if you're playing at 720p and you're cool with, about an average of 37 FPS, then you can definitely play The Witcher 3. And that's actually pretty neat. So we're gonna go back to the full face of myself, and we'll talk about some other stuff. Hey, welcome back. The full face is here. So, if you've seen from our graphs, and so I spent a lot of time doing the testing on this. 3400G is very capable, especially if you're on a budget. I didn't do Fortnite. I was tired of doing Fortnite, to be honest, and so I just didn't. It'll play Fortnite. There's lots of reviews saying that it will. So you don't need to take it from me. I want to try some games that no one else is doing. A lot of people stick to the esports like Rocket League and League of Legends and Fortnite, and that's because this is where it really shines. But I wanted to see how it done with other games like Doom and Witcher and Skyrim and World of Warcraft, and Diablo and things like that. That's what I wanted to see. So that's the games I've done. So let's talk a little bit about the system. And so running the 3400G stock settings, except for the XMP on the memory, which was 3200 megahertz, which you need fast RAM with your APU. Now, whenever I went into the BIOS, or actually as I was running hardware monitor, I noticed that my voltage was going between 1.475 and 1.5 volts, and that my average CPU frequency was much lower than the base frequency of the CPU. And so that got me a little bit concerned, and I was like, what's going on here? So went in and looked at it. I actually reduced the volts or the voltage on the CPU to 1.35, which was a lot lower than what it was, and I put the frequency at a hard 4.1 gigahertz, and that lowered my temperatures, and it made sure that I stayed at a 4.1 gigahertz CPU speed at all times whenever I was doing testing later. And I don't have graphs on that because I was just trying to figure out what was going on. Why is it doing this? So figured it out with the MSI board. It was going to 1.475 volts, which means that it was not happy. And so it couldn't sustain, like it wasn't working like it should. Those volts were way too high. I've seen it on some 3600Xs. I've seen it on the 3900X. You gotta go in and lower them volts, the voltage on it. And so typically with Ryzen, you go and you lower the volts to like 1.35. You can actually still get a pretty high boost. And this was on the last BIOS as well. So after I'd done that, I went in and I played around with the iGPU, so the integrated GPU settings. Boosted it to 1.7 gigahertz or 1700 megahertz, and put the voltage up just a little bit on it. And when I did that, well, it was a game changer. So started playing Diablo to check it out, and it stayed above 60 the whole time. It never dropped below 60 at the same settings. WoW and everything played much better. I could actually boost the graphics up to like 5 or 6, and it still did really, really well. I didn't try The Witcher or Destiny. Tried Doom. Doom stayed above 60 at low on Vulkan API the whole time, and if you see in the chart, it dropped down to like 45 before. This time it was staying high, and so I think that's a really good testament to you need to tinker around with your systems and get the most out of them. Like I said, I lowered the voltage, which lowered the temperatures, which allowed for a much safer running system. But at the same time, it allowed me to get more out of the processor, which is crazy that you would have to undervolt to get more. But because that's how the boost does, the Precision Boost 2.0, it is based upon the amount of power that's going into the chip. If the chip is already running like 1.475 volts or 1.5, which is what this one was going up to, it doesn't have any headroom, and so it's not going to boost like it should, and you're not going to see good frequencies. So go in, test it around, you know, change those frequencies. I hope you all have enjoyed this review of the 3400G and just like the system as a total. And the games that are in, see what kind of performance you can actually get from like a $400 rig. And so the rig could be much cheaper. I want to state that, like, it could be cheaper, right? But the motherboard in it is a great upgrade path if you want to go with something higher, you know, went with a quality power supply so that you could go to something higher in the future. You know, we went with an NVMe drive so that you could, you know, have those sort of things. And it even had, you know, a hard drive and everything. So there's a lot of things that we could have cut. At the same time, it would have cost more in the future to upgrade those things. So if you like the video, leave a like. If you hate it, leave a dislike. Leave a comment. Let me know what your thoughts are. Have you seen this crazy voltage on your 3400 or your Ryzen CPUs? And if you haven't already, subscribe and stay tuned for a lot more content. Thank you.